They finally put words to what fans had sensed for years. Richard Rankin and Sam Heughan admitted that Outlander was never simply a series. It became a part of who they were. The statement wasn't meant to sound dramatic, but it landed like a confession. When they said the show had never been just television, the fandom went still for a heartbeat, and then erupted. Because what they were really talking about wasn't acting, ratings, or even legacy. It was identity. It was about how a story can stop being fiction and start feeling like ownership, responsibility, and belonging. For years, Outlander had been marketed as epic romance, sweeping history, and global entertainment. But behind the cameras, something heavier was taking shape. Sam Heughan didn't merely portray Jamie Fraser. He became entwined with the very idea of Scotland. Fans didn't just watch him, they followed him, projected onto him, and treated him as a living extension of a cultural myth. That kind of attention doesn't fade when the lights go down. It follows you home. It reshapes how the world sees you, and eventually how you see yourself. Richard Rankin stepped into this world later, but the impact struck just as hard. By the time he joined, Outlander was no longer just successful, it was sacred. His character, Roger Wakefield, wasn't universally embraced. He was questioned, criticized, debated. And in that reaction, something deeper surfaced. Fans weren't only judging a character. They were negotiating their relationship with history, morality, and change. Richard didn't simply play Roger. He carried the unease of a culture wrestling with its past through modern eyes. That's where the shift happened. Somewhere between scripts and seasons, Outlander stopped being a job and started becoming a mirror. Sam has spoken openly about how the role altered his sense of responsibility. Playing Jamie meant embodying resilience, masculinity, and national memory all at once. Suddenly, a fictional Highlander was shaping real-world perceptions of Scotland. Tourists arrived chasing a feeling. Fans traced ancestry. People claimed the story as their own. Sam never asked for that role, but once it existed, he couldn't ignore it. Richard felt the pressure in quieter ways. Reserved, careful, almost invisible when the spotlight isn't demanded, he found invisibility impossible. Fans wanted answers. They wanted meaning, explanation, validation. They wanted to know what Roger stood for, what his choices symbolized, and why his journey mattered. Richard realized he wasn't just performing inside a narrative, he was participating in a cultural conversation that stretched far beyond the set. That realization is what makes their admission so powerful. They weren't celebrating success. They were acknowledging weight. Because when a show becomes part of cultural identity, it no longer belongs solely to its creators. It belongs to the audience, to history, to emotion. And the people inside it become caretakers, whether they want to be or not. Every choice matters. Every portrayal carries consequences. Walking away isn't just career evolution. It can feel like abandonment to those who found themselves reflected in the story. This is the drama fans rarely see. Not the romance, not the battles, not the cliffhangers, but the quiet reckoning that comes when entertainment turns into meaning. Sam and Richard didn't romanticize that transformation. They spoke about exhaustion, about pressure, about the strange grief of realizing something has defined a chapter of your life in ways you can't undo. So when they said Outlander was never just a show, they weren't exaggerating. They were admitting it rewired their relationship with fame, with culture, and with themselves. And once that truth is spoken, there's no returning to the comfort of pretending it was only acting. Because stories like Outlander don't end when the credits roll. They linger, they attach, they become identity. And that's the part no one was ready to hear out loud. It didn't sound like promotion. It didn't feel rehearsed. There was no glossy tone actors usually adopt when talking about a long-running series. When Richard Rankin and Sam Heughan finally admitted what the show truly meant to them, it landed heavier than anyone expected. Because beneath it all was a simple, unsettling truth. Once you step into that world, it changes how you see yourself, where you come from, and what you represent, whether you're ready for that responsibility or not. For years, Outlander had been labeled a hit, a romance, a historical epic, a fan phenomenon. All of that was true. But the quieter truth belonged to those living inside it. By the time Richard and Sam spoke openly about the weight they carried, it was clear they weren't talking about awards or numbers. They were talking about identity, about holding something that belonged to a country, a history, and millions of people who saw their own reflections in the story. Sam felt that burden early. Playing Jamie didn't just bring fame. It turned him into a symbol. His face became tied to Scotland in a way no campaign could ever manufacture. People didn't visit the Highlands just for scenery, they came searching for a feeling they first discovered through him. Sam has admitted that realization wasn't flattering. It was intimidating, because once you become a symbol, you stop being an actor. You become a reference point. Richard's path was different but led to the same place. Joining as Roger Wakefield meant stepping into a story already woven deeply into fan culture. Roger was complex, flawed, often misunderstood. And the reactions mirrored something larger, the discomfort people feel when history clashes with modern expectations. Richard didn't just portray a man. He embodied the tension between past and present, tradition and change. Both actors have spoken about how Outlander forced them to confront questions they never expected their careers to raise. Questions about masculinity, violence, love, loyalty, and belonging. Sam has said that playing Jamie meant walking repeatedly into Scotland's past, its trauma, its pride, its resilience. Those weren't abstract ideas. They were inherited stories passed through generations, suddenly carried to millions through a screen. That understanding changed how Sam approached every scene. It was no longer enough to perform. He felt compelled to honor something larger than the script. But that sense of duty didn't always feel noble. Sometimes it felt suffocating. Because when a story becomes cultural, nothing is small. Every line is examined. Every choice is weighed. Every portrayal risks misrepresenting something people hold close. And that is the quiet truth beneath their words. Outlander didn't just give them roles. It gave them a responsibility that doesn't fade when the cameras stop rolling. A story that still breathes, still evolves, still belongs to those who found themselves inside it. And even now, long after the scenes have been shot, that world hasn't fully let them go, leaving the final chapter unwritten, suspended between what they were and what they will always represent.